He likes having company a little. He likes to show off for his company.
Yeah, he's like a kid. And you come over, he needs to play with your toys while you're trying to drink whiskey.
Yeah. Or like all my friends' kids who crawl on the parents only when we're talking.
Yeah.
And we stop talking, kid doesn't care.
Yeah, you go home and they're like, fuck you, Dad, I'm going to my room.
No, he's like, pay attention to me.
I'm here.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 22 of From the Van. It's a podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. Today's episode features Skye Walker. He is a muralist and van lifer who is at the tail end of a 1-year-long mural tour, where he's been driving all over the country, painting murals inside and outdoor, huge, large format murals for a variety of different clients. And I know of Skye because we have a bunch of mutual friends in Encinitas, but we actually met up with him in his hometown of Corvallis, Oregon, as we were passing through. We had a really good conversation, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. Also, please go over to FromTheVan.com and check out our videos and follow our YouTube page and subscribe on whatever your favorite podcast platform is and all of that good business. Enjoy episode number 22 of From the Van, featuring Skye Walker. Skye Walker, welcome to the van.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Yeah. We are at your place in Corvallis.
Corvallis, Oregon. We are at my parents' cottage here, and I went to high school just out of town here in a town called Philomath.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And then I went to Oregon State University.
Right.
And graduated in 2001, which seems like yesterday, and it was already 20-something years ago.
Yep. I'm your age, dude. That's a long fucking time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but we still look young. I feel young.
You both look fantastic.
Aww.
You're sweet.
I have to say, it's Marty's 39th birthday today. I have
Stop
to
it.
embarrass him a
What?
little
Happy
bit.
birthday.
Happy
What?
birthday.
I appreciate it.
Happy
I
39.
have to embarrass him just for a second.
Well, we're August boys. I'm going to be 41 on the 27th.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Happy
see,
birthday.
neither of you
Leos
look
or whatever.
that age. You all both look 15 years younger than
Well,
that.
thank goodness
Thanks,
I
bud.
shaved yesterday. You can say that.
You got a little baby face under there, huh?
I do.
So, I know you from Southern California. When and how did you gravitate down there?
So I was born in Big Bear, California.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
My dad's from Orange County. My mom's originally from Pennsylvania, but they met at Chapman College. So my sister was born in Big Bear as well. So we have full Southern California roots. And growing up, we traveled and lived in a lot of places, but we always went back there with lots of friends and family. And so my entire life, going back and visiting people in Oceanside and Encinitas and Laguna and Big Bear, California's always been in my brain. So as soon as I graduated from college, I'm like, I'm sick of surfing the cold water on the Oregon coast, even though it's beautiful. I want to go down and work in the surf industry and be in some warmer water and be in Encinitas. So
Cool.
as soon as I graduated, well, right after I graduated, 9/11 happened, which kind of stalled my transition out of Oregon. And then in February 2002, I moved down and moved into Cardiff by the Sea and didn't leave
Right.
until I left on this tour.
Right. Cool. So, I want to get into your artistic background, but since you mentioned the tour, tell us about it. What is the Sea to Sea Mural Tour?
The Sea to Sea Mural Tour is something I was thinking about for a really long time. I paint murals for a living. I've been painting them full time for about 10 years. After I worked in the surf industry and the action sports industry, I left in 2009 from the last company I was at, which was Prana, and did some work for Whole Foods Market to paint their store in Encinitas.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't done a mural in 10 years. And they called me and said, hey, would you be able to do a mural? And I didn't even think about it because I did them growing up. My dad taught me to paint murals. I did them through college and paid for school and books instead of working at a coffee shop. But I just didn't, once I started working at Rip Curl and surfing and being in that culture, I just focused on graphic design and illustration and apparel design. But I kind of forgot about painting murals because I didn't see it as a form of making a living. And so when Whole Foods hired me in 2009 or 10, I painted the entire store, and then it just sparked this like fire in me that I was like, whoa, I forgot how amazing this is. For one, not only could I do this and hopefully make a living at it, but also do it in an expressive manner and paint more public work.
Sure.
So I started doing more of that throughout San Diego and traveling to do more work across the U.S. And then I started thinking, well, it'd be pretty amazing to do this full time on the road. And I just had that in the back of my head. But then I connected with my now really good friend. His name's Crispin Chetler. He's a pro skier. And we were introduced by a friend named Jussi Oksanen, who's a pro snowboarder. And I met Chris and his wife Kimmy, and he's an amazing artist and he does all the graphics for his skis. So I suggested we do a collaboration. So a year later, he started building a van to do a show called Chasing Adventure. And we did the art that went on his van. We ended up doing a huge mural to kick off the premiere of his film. But through the process of building his van and seeing what he did with it, I was like, that would be the way I need to do what I want to do. So I was definitely inspired by what him and Scott Smith, his builder of his van, did. And I kind of took that. I met some new guys, Joey Fandel of Noble Campers and Johnny Wood of Woods Off-Road. And they were introduced to me by my friend Curtis Beauvais. And there was a great synergy. Joey built the inside of my van. Johnny built the racks. And it all just came together right after I bought the van and really pulled the trigger to do it. And then in June 3rd, 2018, I hit the road. And I've been on the road for 13 months. So this is the 14th month.
Right.
Cool.
How many murals have you done on the tour?
I've painted 29 murals.
Wow.
In 12 months. The month of July has been kind of a wash on murals because my sister just had a baby. My sister Amaris Walker. Shouts out to Amaris.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And her fiance Andy, and they just had a beautiful baby girl named Kalia. And we're all super stoked. So this month has been devoted to family.
Cool.
And I also just zip back to Mammoth really quick because I'm a part of Chris's new...
Don't know where he got this from.
I don't know either.
He found a teddy bear.
You can go set it in the back of that truck.
Or, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to destroy
Or
that.
put it on the van, bud. We'll put it over there at the end just so we don't have as much of an interruption. So, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't want him to destroy it.
No, thank you. That's great that you got it.
I don't want it to be like your childhood toy that he then destroyed, you
Little
know?
fucker.
Not my little childhood toy.
All right.
As long as he's not chewing on the van. But
No.
yeah, so Chris Benchetler's doing a new film project with the Grateful Dead, which I've been working on with him this year. And I flew back this month. We did a little extra shooting, and I'm really excited because that's been a real quiet part of the year. But now that he's kind of released what's happening, he and I have done like multiple collaborations. We did 3 throughout this year on the tour. And so that's been a really fun project to be working with traveling.
Yeah.
So yeah, 29 murals, 12 months, and the 30th mural is going to happen, I believe, back home in San Diego. I haven't finalized it, so I don't want to jinx it, but if it happens, I'm excited because that's going to be a perfect place to finish the tour where I started.
That's rad.
So my goal, I didn't have a goal on a number, but then when I hit 20 murals, I'm like, okay, I want to get to 30.
Wow.
And once I hit 25, which was in Fraser, Colorado, I was like, okay, 5 more, I can do it. And then I've hit 29. I had a couple lined up in Santa Cruz that kind of just fell through because of timing and some other things. But then this other one has opened up in Leucadia, and I'm excited.
Oh, Leucadia.
Yeah.
All right.
Oops, I spilled the beans on the location.
Come up here. Okay, that's good.
Chill out, Bubs.
Yeah, chill out. So you told me before we started recording that you've done like 21,000 miles or something.
Oh, wow.
Yep,
that right?
I've hit. When I left, the van had 500 miles on it just from building it and driving around Encinitas.
Yeah.
So I take that back. I'm at 20,650 miles. So 20,060 miles in 12 months, 13 months. Wow. So definitely put it to use.
How many states have you painted in?
I've painted in about 15 or 16 states.
On the tour?
On the tour.
Yeah.
I've driven through about 29 states.
Okay.
In the fall, I went to New England and was able to go to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and crossed through Delaware, which knocked off all the last states I needed to go to. So now I've been to every state.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there you go.
Very cool.
Little backstory. My parents performed and traveled together before my sister and I were born. They were folk singers.
Okay.
Morris and Lynn Walker. Shouts out to my parents. And they traveled all over. They performed in Vietnam for the troops. They're amazing. My dad built a camper for the back of their old Chevy truck, and they did it before anybody was doing it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So then when my sister and I were born and we got old enough, they started incorporating us into this family band that we had. And then my dad took us on the road in 1990, and we traveled for 2 years and performed all over the United States. We had a Chevy van. We also had a little Airstream behind us, but the van was kind of a conversion. It had a couple, captain's chairs. It had like a TV, VCR, a little woodwork. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we did van life then and performed maybe 2,000 shows all over the United States for mostly schools.
Yeah.
And then we ended up in Oregon in 1993, where my sister and I did high school and then ended up in college here.
So for you, like so many people that I talk to, who are just getting into the van or are thinking about getting into the van, like have a bazillion questions and they're not acclimated to it. And then when they decide to do it, it's sort of a taboo with respect to the people around them, their friends and family and stuff. But not only were you already acclimated to this, your folks were probably like, yeah, that seems like a totally reasonable thing to do, right?
Totally.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
super cool.
they were all for it because I knew at the heart of it, I wasn't doing it to prove I could do van life.
Right, sure.
I wasn't trying to be like, look at me and doing this particular thing, because there's so many people that do it and do it really well, and they've got amazing vehicles. I'm very fortunate that the people I worked with helped me build a beautiful van and home to live in and do this. But the heart of it was I wanted to get out on the road and be in places where I wouldn't normally be and interact with people on a level that extended beyond just coming into town, painting a mural, and leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to work with schools and boys and girls clubs and help teach art when possible and hopefully inspire someone along the way. I know I got completely inspired by many people and many places, but to immerse yourself in areas where you wouldn't normally hang out or whatever is highly beneficial for an artist, because you learn so much from it. Because normally I would drive or fly into a location, paint the mural, maybe see something, but then split, because in the back of my head I'm like, oh, the surf's going off, I got to get back. That anxiety to get back and be a part of Encinitas and where I was living was palpable, because when you surf, it's just in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that drove me a lot to just, hey, this is great being here, painting the mural, okay, I got to go. But this time I just was like, this is where I'm at. I'm going to absorb everything I can. And, when I was in Maine, I got to paint a mural for Grain Surfboards, and I surfed there for 2 weeks and got to meet some amazing people, eat lobster, cruise around. Awesome. Went down to the Outer Banks, got skunked on surf. Had these all kinds of experiences. And definitely was in urban areas where there's no surf, there's no mountains. So you got to soak in what's going on, whether it's music or people or culture. And these were all things that I wanted to have happen, and they all did.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
And I'm very grateful for that.
So we were sort of wondering about this. Colette and I are both outdoor enthusiasts, and I'm a surfer, but we're also theater people and very much like city culture interested, you know? And so one of the things that I wanted to do when I built this van was to make it as stealth as possible. People ask me all the time, where do you park? And I'm like, anywhere my van doesn't look like anything once we close it up, Your van has, that's vinyl, right?
Yeah.
A giant, and I'm
Gorgeous.
assuming you made that mural, right? It's beautiful.
Yeah, so the art on my van was painted by Chris Ben Chetler and myself. So when I
Collaboration.
Yeah, when I
Cool.
told him I was because we've painted 2 collaborations for his van.
Okay.
Which is the Stealthy Marmot.
Okay.
Look it up on Insta, super cool. But as soon as I told him I was going to buy the van and do this tour, he's like, well, we have to paint one for your van.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to bug him for that, but because he's super busy. But once he said, I was like, well, heck yeah, I'm stoked. So we collaborated and we painted that piece, which is called Narratives.
Okay.
But it's a full color piece. And I was like, It's too bright for
too much
for this. So I took it to a monochromatic bluish gray. The cool thing with this wrap is at night it becomes camouflage. That blue dulls down so much, and because it's a matte print as well, it becomes almost like this just nebulous pattern at night.
That makes
which
sense.
is nice because you're right. You want to be as stealth as possible.
Do you find that you can just park this places and?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I've parked in urban settings, neighborhoods, and obviously I try and park as safe and as smart as possible. Definitely not trying to like ruin anybody's scene or neighborhood or cause any issues. I don't want to get woken up in the middle of the night from someone harassing me. But yeah, I mean, I just make sure to park in a good spot. And
when you go and paint a school, have they set you up sometimes with like, oh, you can stay over in this guy's house or this back behind the school or whatever?
Totally. I haven't stayed in any schools, but I've definitely had people say, yeah, we have a great driveway, we have a great street, or we know somebody with a yard, whatever. Makes it easier and safe. The hard part is like in a lot of these areas, because you have to paint in a more urban setting versus way out in nature. I couldn't drive out to like BLM land and be in the stars because that's like a 4-hour drive from where I'm painting a mural. So, you know, there's a lot more urban camping than I would have liked at times, but I also knew it came with the territory. This trip wasn't for me to go off grid and be in the middle of nowhere and say, look at me, I'm in the middle of nowhere with my van, because that's not what the tour was about. The tour was about doing art and being active with it and, you know, seeing what came of it, because I tried to line up as much work as possible before I left, and the third mural that I had set up on the tour canceled on me the day I got there.
Oh no.
Really?
They had some budgetary constraints and some things happened, which was unfortunate, and I was stressed because it was a paying gig and I was expecting it. But then that was really great. It was great that happened, because after that, I had some amazing people reference me to some other people, and then a guy named Jordan Basile, I think I say his name wrong. He referred me to the High Five Foundation in Truckee, California. I ended up doing a donated piece for them, and they work with athletes that have been paralyzed doing action sports. Amazing foundation, amazing people, and after that, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about things working or not working, because they're going to work how they're supposed to. And once I adopted that mindset, everything flowed so much better. And not to say there weren't frustrating moments or times, but I didn't let that get to me, because I was like, well, if that doesn't happen, another door will open. And that's exactly how it worked. And I couldn't have expected things to go the way they did. And I still look back at it and go, wow, I can't believe how some of these things aligned. It created so many serendipitous moments of timing and amazing things that happened that I never could have anticipated and or predicted. And I wouldn't have happened if I'd been stressed about like, well, this has to happen and it has to happen this way. When you're on the road, it happens the way it's supposed to.
Right.
Because if you try and force it, it's not going to work. At least with what I do. So.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your art. I am somewhat familiar, but not super familiar with your art. When I think about the things that I've seen that you've done, I see like a very like wild ethic, wildlife specifically. I've seen a bunch of murals with wildlife in them and that sort of thing. When you do a piece, whether it's for somebody else and you're putting yourself into it, or if you're doing something on your own, what do you usually try to convey?
So a lot of my work is inspired by Mother Nature. It always has been. Even when I worked for other companies like Rip Curl and Prana, I certainly try, and obviously Rip Curl's surfing and Prana's outdoors, I definitely incorporated that stuff. But when I do my own work, it always comes from a place of organic qualities and elements. And a lot of my work has a female persona in it, which I think is representative of Mother Nature. It's like a metaphor, but it also gives you that visual human connection. So it's not just like a bird in a tree. Once you put a human element in there, I think it gives people a real direct connection to it and a relatable one. So, not that I don't like doing work with just nature without people in it, but it just gives that connection. So yes, nature is a big part of what I do, and our environment is so important. And as you, and the dog agrees.
Anybody who's listened to any of these podcasts is not surprised by this.
Hey there. But our environments are in serious need of attention.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to paint stuff that's going to beat people over the head and say like the ice caps are melting and this is happening. It is happening. It's more to be like a subtle reminder that, hey, our environments are beautiful. Let's try and be conscious of that. And we're all guilty of contributing to it. I don't care how good you are with your recycling, your plastic use, we are all guilty, even by accident, because plastic is wrapped in everything, and all you can do is be as conscious and as proficient as you can to prevent pollution. But again, my work is just meant to kind of hopefully create an inspiring, beautiful image for people to think about, and I try and wrap some subtext in there on subtle levels, even if it's just like typography lines, which I put a lot in my work this year because it relates to the certain area and gives you a visual perspective of like, oh, those lines relate to this peak that's right next to my town, and oh, I didn't know that, and little things like that I hope people kind of get interested about. But I definitely draw a lot of inspiration from nature. It's constant, from the oceans to the mountains, as there's so many artists that do. So yeah. I'm guilty of that.
Cool. I'm just gonna restart this real quick. I'll cut off after a while if I don't fuck with it. It sounds like you got something.
So what is your process like for creating a mural? Do you like map it out on a smaller piece? How do you do it, and how long does it take?
There's a couple different ways to do it. Back in the day, you'd have to hand draw a whole thing to scale to give people an idea. But now with technology, it's nice because you can sketch something up quickly on an iPad, put it in Photoshop, mock it up, because then people go, oh, I get it. That's what it would look like on my 50-foot wall.
Okay.
Whereas if you just doodle something and say, look at this on your phone, the vision gets lost. So I would like to say that I do original pieces of art for every mural. That's not the case, because some of these murals I've done on the tour I designed like the day before I got there. So there's a multitude of different ways I do it. I'll do hand drawings, I'll do iPad drawings, create the concepts. Sometimes they're very rough, and then the real art comes together on the final mural.
Cool.
The application of the mural happens a few different ways. I freehand murals, I grid murals, I project murals. It all comes down to timing. So if I have a short amount of time on a big wall, I'll project it, get my line work up, and get to work on painting and filling it in and making it look good. Okay. If I have a lot of time, like a mural I did for Evo in Seattle was like 50 feet by 25 feet. I had like 7 days, so I just freehanded the whole thing and took my time with it, and which is awesome.
That sounds so fast to me.
Yeah, it does.
You're like, I had a lot of time, 7 days.
Well, for that one it was, but I did a 100-foot mural in Nashville for the Keep Abreast Foundation, and that was 100 feet by 30 feet, and I projected a quarter of the wall just to start it, and then I freehanded the remaining 40 feet of it because weather was coming in and things were changing, so I just didn't have a lot of time to grid out every part of the wall. And there's a lot of artists that are purists that would never project, but there's also like timing and limitations, and I want to be as pure as I can when I can, but sometimes it's like, well, we have technology and I'm gonna put it to use, because in the end I want to take the time to paint the mural properly and have it look beautiful before I go. And some murals, I did a big one here in town a couple years ago, and I had 2 days to paint it before it rained for 8 days. So I just had to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
It's gotta dry and all that too.
Yeah, but whenever I can, I'll freehand or grid or paint murals to that degree, so I don't have so I can really spend the time and craft it from zero to end. And so there's a few different ways to make it happen.
That's very cool.
when I hear all of these people, they would call themselves purists, and they're probably equally as aptly labeled Luddites, you know, like anti-technology or whatever. I was thinking about that the other day because we shoot with now all these digital cameras and stuff, and I remember when the digital camera was really just starting to happen and they started making professional quality ones. People are like, I would never shoot with a digital camera.
Yep.
And now to hear somebody say that, it's like, okay, Quentin Tarantino shoots movies on film, but only because he's super well established and he can afford to buy it. You know what I mean? And people are going to watch his films no matter what he does. But like, if you're trying to do something pragmatically these days, you might as well use the technology available to you, especially if it's not going to fuck up the quality of your work.
Well, you know,
Stop it.
Michelangelo actually did some projections, as I understand it, on the Sistine Chapel.
No way.
Oh.
Apparently, he did it through pinholes in paper, if I'm remembering it properly, and he lit it with candles from below, and it shined up to give his scale on the ceiling. Because painting that, what he did on the Sistine Chapel is incredible for one, but the perspective on everything is 100% perfect. But to have a little bit of guidance at something like that,
Yeah.
Can't blame him.
I can't.
Yeah.
It took
It's
him.
huge.
It took him like
Yeah.
10 years to paint that thing. But yeah, I mean, the technology, it's important. I just dropped off some film that I use in my 35 millimeter camera, and it's, you know, going to be a week and a half before I get him back and see what I do. But as we know, I couldn't wait for that to post like, oh, I was here and I did this mural today, by waiting a week and a half, and then it wouldn't matter anymore. So we're bound by our technology, and if you use it to your advantage, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But then there's a point too, you want to be able to, if you're going to be a professional photographer or a professional painter, you want to be able to shoot on manual and know that you can change your aperture and your shutter speed, and someone can ask you that and you know what you're talking about. Same with me, if someone's like, well, can you paint this wall without any help? I want to know that I can.
Sure.
And not just be like, oh, I have to rely on a projector. I don't have to do that. Our wall's daunting, and you're like, oh man, it would be way easier to project it, but I want to take the time and grid it and know I went from start to finish without any of that kind of help.
Right.
So again, there's plenty of artists that do both, and you know, in the end, I think as long as you know that you can do it traditionally, I think that's the important thing.
So you're shooting for 30 murals, but once you've done the 30th, what happens? What's next?
I'm gonna.
Is it over?
That's it. Game over. I'm done doing art. No, that's always the question. What's next? Well, what's next is just continuing my trajectory to keep doing as many large-scale public works as possible, because I love it. It's what I realized a few years ago. I was like, this was it. This is what I need to do. And I love graphic design, but I don't want to just sit on a computer all day. And there's plenty of people that do graphic design way better than I could, even though I got my degree in it. But I always was a fine artist. Figure drawing was a big thing for me, painting. But now to be able to paint something and have it live on a wall at 50 or 100 feet for thousands or even millions of people to see potentially, that excites me more than anything. I've definitely done small scale paintings and art, and I love it, and I'm excited to get back to do more of that, more studio gallery work. But when, you know, I've had people buy pieces of work and say, I love what I bought, and I'm like, thank you, and they're like, I hung it in my bathroom, and I'm like,
Nobody's gonna see that.
and they're like, no, so many people comment. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but that wasn't meant to, it wasn't meant to go in the bathroom. Again, I'm grateful that people...
You do you, but...
Yeah, I'm grateful that people will buy the art, because that is that's the biggest compliment, is to have somebody buy a piece of your work, regardless of where they hang it. But to paint something that is going to be outside or inside on a large scale and have people comment on it, love it, get inspired by it, that to me is my driving force to continue with doing murals. And everything I've learned from this year is just going to help fuel that. It has made me want to do more gallery, smaller scale stuff, because I just haven't had any time to do it. My studio was outside this year, and when you're painting outside, there's a light breeze blowing, beautiful day, birds are chirping, and you're creating outside, there's nothing better than that. But I also know that I need smaller work for prints and things that people are interested in. But I'm not going to stop doing murals. I'd like to do more. I'd like to do more internationally. I'd like to keep traveling. I'm potentially going to do another tour in maybe 2021. I just need to figure out the logistics. And yeah, so continue with art and murals to the nth degree.
Do you have like a dream wall?
Ooh, a dream wall. Not necessarily a dream wall, but probably like a dream location. Somewhere like, I don't know, New York City, where people are going to see it. You know, millions are going to see it. There's so much talent in New York and amazing street artists that, you know, that's wishful thinking. But yeah, I mean, just beautiful walls that are not, where the paint's not stripping off and it's just got good visibility. And those are they're all dream walls. They're all like this blank canvas where you're like, what can I make of this?
Yeah.
And also in that process, having the time and the autonomy to create what I want. When you work for clients, which obviously I'm grateful to do, sometimes you're compromised because they want their vision. And it doesn't coincide with what you think the wall should be. And when someone says, hey, do what you want and make it awesome, that's the best thing ever. And that's the most complimentary thing to your work as an artist.
Sure.
But when people try and manipulate it into something else, or if they try and tell you to copy someone else's work, then it's like, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
So
Right.
just creating on your own terms is always the best.
Sure.
When possible.
Do you okay, so you said that you got your degree in graphic design and you were painting murals with your dad when you were younger. Can you flesh out a little bit more of your artistic background and like when did you decide to start painting? Was it with the murals with your dad, or were you already driven to do that before?
I was creating and drawing ever since I was like 4. Okay. So that was never a question. My dad was a jack of all trades. I mean, he was an art director and he was an artist and a sign maker, and he was worked for marketing and for things like Nevada Magazine. And my parents did a host of different jobs in between us doing the family band thing. So they also have a small video production company, and they've made hundreds of video productions for lots of different companies. So, but my dad did a lot of sign painting and mural work when I was a kid, you know, as in between jobs, and also for fun, but also, you know, I can do this and, you know, make some money in between things, and as artists do. But it wasn't until I was in high school where he was doing some stuff on the Oregon coast when we lived in Florence that I was like, oh, that's cool, Dad. I'll help you with that. And he'd show me stuff. But I never saw it as a way to be expressive. I always saw it as like, well, this seems like too hard to get walls and sort this out, you know. That's why I'll just work on a small scale. But then in college, here at Oregon State University, I did a lot of stuff for people that we want the Oregon State beaver on the wall. And I'm like, okay. So I painted like a 25-foot tall beaver for the wrestling department here.
Cool.
That was probably my first large-scale solo mural. It's like 20 feet tall, 25 feet tall. I got like $800 and was stoked. You know, I airbrushed the whole thing, and it's still there today. And you know, that was cool. But then I did other stuff around town, and everybody wanted the beavers. But now I've been able to paint murals in town of my own vision.
Yeah,
art,
cool.
Which is really cool. But when I was a kid, I always loved Garfield, the cartoon, and I just loved how clean his style was and everything. And I sent him a letter, Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, with some of my art, and I said, hey, I want to be like you someday. I love Garfield, yada yada. And like 3 weeks later, I got a letter from him on Garfield letterhead with like a die cut like bite taken out of it, and it had a picture of Garfield with paper in his mouth. And it said, hi Skye, keep up the good work, love your art, Jim Davis. And I was like, oh my God, this was life-changing. I was like 8.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
And I remember being at breakfast and I'm looking at this letter and I'm like, Mom, oh my God. I said, I want to be an artist for the rest of my life. Because at the time I was like, maybe I'll be a veterinarian. You know, when you're 8, you're like, all these things, fireman, you know, astronaut. But that changed my mind. I'm like, art, that's it, whatever that means. And that never changed. So I've always wanted to be an artist. I didn't know what capacity that was going to be in. And then it's obviously evolved. And I've been, I believe, very versatile in what I do. Graphic design, illustration, cartoons, murals. Maybe to my detriment at times instead of just focusing on one thing as an artist. But I also appreciate the variability, because if Whole Foods had called me 9 years ago and said, hey, can you do murals for us? And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. I would have missed an amazing opportunity.
Sure.
So I painted 8 Whole Foods stores now across the United States.
Rad.
And then that wouldn't have, you know, it would have been something else that would have inspired me. But that was the thing that turned my whole ship around and focused into public artwork.
Cool.
Pissed that Whole Foods isn't open
I
anymore.
know.
I
What a
know, I'm
bummer,
so
right?
sad that
That's a
Encinitas
bummer.
closed.
Do you have any others around Encinitas?
I painted Whole Foods in Del Mar,
Oh, okay.
Hillcrest.
Okay.
I painted a little small mural in La Jolla's Whole Foods.
I used to drink there all the time.
There's a little Torrey Pines tree I painted in there. Hillcrest
okay.
is a little more expansive. I did like 5 murals in there, big ones.
Oh,
Okay.
fun.
And then Fairfax in LA, I did one in Laguna Niguel. I did one in Arizona, which closed the same time as Encinitas, unfortunately. And then I just did their newest store in Kaka'ako in Hawaii, which was probably the gnarliest job I've ever done. It was a massive construction project in between me painting and using a boom lift between $1 million escalators, and it was pretty crazy, but I was doing it right before the tour, and it helped me get my feet on the ground to get going on the tour. So it was a big job. It was 2 trips to Hawaii, probably 15 days for each trip, 15-hour days consecutively to get the job done. But it was very gratifying in the end, and yeah, so always stoked to work with Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
yeah, so
Cool. Do you have any more art questions before we move to the van? I feel obligated to ask him about his van.
Oh, yeah. Go for it. It's just fascinating,
Yeah.
and I've always thought murals were so fascinating.
Yeah, they're
'cause it's
super
so
cool.
incredible to do something at such a large scale. Like, I feel like you got to step back a lot and look at it.
totally.
And be like, what did I just do?
And I'm there's so many artists that I follow, muralists, that are mind-blowing. Like,
Sure.
I am totally forgetting his name now, but an artist I think in Europe just did I don't know how big this wall was, but he painted it with these giant free-handed butterflies, and they look real, but the wall is probably 8 stories tall.
Jesus.
By like 250 feet wide. It is enormous, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I'm like, well, I need to go back to the drawing board, because that guy just took it to another level.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many artists that I follow. There's a lot of artists that I know that are muralists that I'm inspired by, and it's hard not to compare yourself when you're out there doing what other people are doing. It's natural.
Fair.
And I have to remember as an artist, like, well, they're different than me, even though we're doing something similar. But sometimes you just can't help but get a little jealous and be like, oh man, that guy's style or that girl's style is pretty incredible. I wish that was mine, but it's not, and that's okay. I'll do my thing. But it's definitely inspirational to see really big art by other artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me restart this again, and then we'll talk about the van. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us about your van. What kind of van you got?
My van is a 27. You want to talk about my van? He wants to talk about the van. It's a 2017 Mercedes Sprinter 4x4, 144-inch wheelbase. I bought it brand new because I was trying to buy one for my buddy, and the bank made it very impossible. So I just sucked it up and was like, well, I'm going to go into debt. I'm going to buy the van and build it from zero, because then I can build it the way I want. It currently has 20,600 miles on it, and it's been pretty incredible. I just did a little upgrade on the back. I just added some sumo springs because I had a lot of weight in the back.
Yeah.
I should have added them before I left, but it's definitely helped with the sway and the stability of that thing. But my friend Joey Fandel, who I mentioned earlier, built the inside, and my buddy Johnny Wood built the racks out of steel, and he built the racks, the bumper, and the rear swing arms for the Luminesce boxes.
Okay.
And he's a monster. I mean, he handmade all those from scratch and killed it.
Yeah.
And just like Joey built the inside. And yeah, the synergy of those guys coming together with, like, you know, designs I'd throw at them and be like, what if we do this or this? It all worked out, and yeah, it's been an amazing vehicle to live in and travel in. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about Mercedes vans too. I don't care about, like, you know, look at this amazing Mercedes car, sedan, luxury. That doesn't do anything for me. They're beautiful cars. I don't want one. But the way the Mercedes van is designed, as I'm sure you know, it's pretty flawless. Like, every little detail works, you know, seamlessly. And as I lived in it and drove it and used it, I'm like, wow, this is pretty darn efficient.
Yeah.
And I know there's other vans on the market. There's definitely some good ones, but none of them hit the mark to me like the Sprinter. And Chris Benchetler has a 170-inch wheelbase van, so I got familiar with what the vans were by looking at his, and that also helped me make the decision to get it.
Yeah. What, in terms of like living space and amenities and stuff, what do you have in there?
So I've got a pretty good size, I think 37-gallon ARB fridge.
Okay.
So it's really good size. I've never had a lack of space for fruits and veggies and salads and, you know, guayaki and all the tasty treats in there when I'm driving. I've got
have that yerba.
Got that yerba mate. Shouts out to guayaki yerba mate.
Had one, there's a can right there. I had one
I
earlier.
was stoked. You guys are
I like
bringing
the
it up.
sparkling ones.
Shouts out to my friend Madison for setting me up on the tour. But yeah, so I've got a sink. I've got a Goal Zero Yeti lithium-ion battery to charge all my knickknacks and cameras and all that stuff. And then I've got 2 solar panels. One solar panel powers all my LED lights, my fridge, my water pump, and one other thing. And then the Yeti lithium-ion battery is powered by the other Goal Zero.
Oh, interesting. So you got 2 separate systems.
2 separate systems. So because the Goal Zero is nice because I can pull it out when I'm doing murals if I need electricity for a projection in a random place, or if I just need to plug in and use music or whatever, I can pull it out. It doesn't stay in the van. That's been really a nice addition.
I'll bet so.
And yeah, I've got a full-size queen bed, and it's modular, so I can collapse it down. And I have 2 mattress pieces made by 2920 Sleep, and they were awesome. They sponsored me for the tour, and shouts out to 2920. And they custom made me this mattress because I have to take down the last quarter of it to collapse the bed to make room for my sit space and my desk space.
Okay.
But then I have a piece of wood that I set down and fills up the whole bed so I can sleep fully in there. I mean, there's so much more room than I anticipated. You could sleep 3 full-size adults in there. Yeah. No problem. I haven't done that, but it is possible. And
couldn't leave it to the imagination.
I know. Sorry, everybody. I didn't get that weird. But it's you know, the front passenger seat rotates so you can kind of have a little, you know, hangout session in there, and
like this.
Just like this. I got a ceiling fan to push air in or pull it out. What else do I've got? The whole back garage has my mountain bike. It's got my paints. It's got my instruments. It's got 3 drawers with extra gear, clothes, paint gear, and then on the back I've got 2 Luminesce boxes that store all my paints and all the kind of smelly stuff for painting that I don't want off-gassing in the van.
Right.
I also have propane tank in there, and that's been really great to have those to just be like, oh, this stuff stinks like paint, throw it in there, it doesn't stink up the van.
Yeah.
How much gear do you have to have for your murals? Is it a lot?
It depends. I
Okay.
probably carry more than I should, but it's been beneficial because there's been times where I'm like, oh, I need that extra thing, and I've got it.
Sure.
So that's why I needed the extra space, because I could go into every town and buy things over and over again, but I didn't want to be wasteful, so I brought things I could reuse.
Right. Cool. What do you keep up in the rocket box on top?
Oh yeah. So my box on top has a surfboard, my Super Brand shortboard, along with a couple wetsuits and my full face helmet for mountain biking, and just all the stuff for fun activities. And then up top I've got 2 stepping platforms on the rack that Johnny built, so I can step over and access the front solar panel and then the Goal Zero. I shattered that front solar panel on the freeway in New York.
Oh no.
A semi shot a rock up and I heard it hit, but I thought it just hit like the frame because it was pretty loud, and I was like, whatever. And then a couple days later I was in Ohio painting a mural, and I got on the roof to take a photo of the mural, and I looked down and the panel was shattered end to end.
Wow.
And I was like, oh shit. So that was a total that was a bummer, because then it wasn't working properly. It started shorting out my fridge because the fridge was drawing from the energy source, the solar panel box that was rediverting all the energy. It wasn't pulling properly. So then it drained my deep cycle battery. It shorted the fridge out. It was just a chain reaction.
Gnarly.
Luckily, my buddy Nick Keating, shouts out to Nick, and his dad in New Hampshire had a ladder. They had tools. I ordered a new one, shipped it to their house, and then I installed it with their help. Because the way it's on there, you have to just put one arm underneath and unscrew it with the help of one other person, but it's a blind unscrewing thing, so I couldn't have done it myself. But you could only do it by yourself, if that makes sense, as long as somebody can spot what's going on. So it was kind of a shit show, but it was also van life, and you know, better that than my windshield, I guess.
Maybe.
Probably a little cheap. It might be a little cheaper.
Oh, it was definitely cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, that there's people all over the place who have replaced one of those windshields.
That's
before.
true.
And
True.
your solar panel isn't covered by your insurance.
That's the thing. So the new panel was $180 and just a little bit of time and frustration. But it's funny because driving, I don't know, months after I did that, my windshield's just still clean. It's pristine. I'm like, oh, this is so
Nice.
So nice. I haven't had anything happen. And then crack!
Oh no.
Little rock shot up right in the eyesight line, and it just it's all I see when I drive. It's just
yeah.
It's not bad, it's not splintering, but it's just
It's like a scratch right on right in front of your pupil on your glasses,
on your sunglasses.
right?
Yeah, no, so it couldn't have had it happen on the passenger side. It had to happen right in front of me.
Right there.
Mine, luckily, on my car is right in the center of the very center of the windshield. There's
good.
a little star.
So it doesn't.
I'm like, okay.
It's annoying, but it's not right in your line of sight.
Put some in front of it, hanging from your mirror. Don't even know it's there.
Exactly. Hang some crystals down, and I've been very fortunate that I haven't experienced anything bad, and I'm not even going to go there with talking about that. I want to just accept all the good vibes from travel, because
sure.
there's a lot of scary stories of people in van life, and I heard of a couple that was sleeping and they were rear-ended while they were sleeping, which sounds absolutely horrible. One thing. I never slept in the van parked on a street, like a busy thoroughfare. It would be side streets, or I made sure something was around me or in a parking lot to where people couldn't just bomb past me or slip off and hit me.
We do regularly sleep on a street, but we always try to get a really low traffic street.
Yep.
And whenever I parallel park, there's always somebody behind me.
Yeah.
So that if I get hit, it's going to be a glance, not like a full-blown impact.
Yeah, and I think this couple got hit full-blown.
Gnarly.
Just sounds like a real headache.
Hit your head on that fridge right there.
Oof.
What else?
Are you gonna stay in the van when your tour's over?
Good question. I'm definitely planning to do another tour of some kind. I don't know what that means yet. When I get back to San Diego, I'm going to kind of recalibrate definitely surf as much as I can, just right off the bat, and get back in the ocean. But I'm probably going to rent a place for a little bit and get out of the van so I can just, like I said, recalibrate what I want to do, but also have some space to work on some paintings and not just be in the van. I could totally live in the van, and I have no problem with it. Even bathroom has not been an issue, which a lot of people obviously ask about. But to have space to paint and create I need that, and I want to generate a new art show and a series of work. So I'll probably rent a place for a little bit and then kind of formulate my plans for the next tour.
Yeah.
And I'm also looking at possibly going to Australia or New Zealand for a little bit. So I want to get out of the country and do a couple trips.
Right.
But yeah, and I definitely have some murals coming up where I'll be taking the van and staying in it. And
Yeah.
Cool.
now that I have it, I'm like, well, I can drive out to wherever and
Do any old job.
do the job and not have to stay in a hotel or
Yeah.
whatever. And
You're in your space, so it's nice and comfortable.
yeah, and it's funny. I didn't quite get it. I knew people that do van life, and we'd go stay somewhere at the same time, and they wouldn't stay in like the Airbnb. They're like, we'll stay in the van. No, come inside. No, it's okay. I get it. It's home. I'm comfy in there.
Yeah.
And people have been very gracious and say, come stay in our house. And I'm like, it's okay. I can sleep in the van. I like it. In some instances, I stayed in someone's house because it made sense and it was less awkward for them to know that someone was just camped out in their driveway.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
But and then sometimes it was very welcome to just get out of the van, have a shower, have a bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got no problem staying in. I think it's cozy as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always say we don't need your guest room, but we will use your shower.
Yes, shower and food is always acceptable.
Yeah.
And
Maybe a nice shit, but that's about it.
I'll eat your food whether I'm living in a van or a house.
Exactly. Food is always welcome.
Yeah. Doesn't matter where you live.
But it is funny how people just think that because you are in a van that you're down on your luck or you just gave up on life and the van was the only option.
Right.
I've had people say to me who don't know anything about art and murals, and they think that I'm just driving around painting for free for whoever wants it. And I'm like, this is my home. Like, I have to pay bills.
Yeah.
And I try and be as upfront and honest about that and educate as much as I can so they are understanding of what I do and how I do it, instead of just thinking, oh, you just drive around and paint for free.
If only art worked like that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know.
But at the same time, when I've done donated work, but here's the trade-off. And my friend said it pretty well. No pay, no say. So if you want the art, cool. But if you're not paying for it, then I paint what I
I can
want.
do whatever I want.
The minute you start having a budget, then we can talk about the things that you'd like to have happen if it's,
Stop it.
if it makes sense. But if someone really wants a piece of art but absolutely has no money, then they gotta let me have full control.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah,
And then you get it up on a lovely wall, and
hopefully so.
it's all your shit.
Well, and I
That's
also
super
know
cool.
that I'm not gonna do anything super like gnarly or controversial.
It's just gonna be a big
No.
dick.
Everything I've seen of yours is really
really
beautiful.
pretty, yeah.
So
Yeah, we really like this
crushing
mural,
it.
but why did you paint a big wiener on the wall? I'm like, I'm sorry,
why does Mother Earth have a wiener?
Yeah.
Well, okay. You've sort of been doing it along, but like, where can people? I know you've got a bunch of sponsors, and you're welcome to plug whoever you want to. But where can people find you?
People, all the people, can find me on Instagram at Skye Walker _art, Skye with an E, SKYE. The van is at vango_go. My website is skywalkerart.com. And yeah, I feel free to follow along, message me, say hi. If you're interested in a mural, let me know.
Cool. And you've got a little, merch happening, right? Hammocks, and
Yeah.
I saw some sticker packs and stuff.
Yeah, I've got some cool
Stop it.
collaborative projects that Crispin Chetler actually lined up with our collaborative work. We did some collaborative hammocks with Madeira. Mm-hmm. And what's cool is 2 trees are planted for every hammock sold.
Oh, cool.
So we've got 4 different hammocks based off our Chris and my work. and so you can find those on Madera.com. We just did a couple of chalk bags with static chalk bags, which is pretty cool. And then as far as my own work, I did have a sticker series that I just did. I sold out in 2 days, so I need to do some more.
Cool.
And I'm working on that. I've got some new art prints I'm working on, some new sticker packs. So I'm generating a whole bunch of new fun stuff, and I'm going to flood my website with it.
Rad.
As soon as I get back and get a little time to get that nailed down.
Your stuff would look cool on skate decks and stuff like that too.
Done skateboards, I've done wakeboards. I'm doing something with Chris Benchetler and Liquid Force wakeboards, which will be coming out. I'm not going to say what, when, where, or why, or how, but that's going to be awesome. And yeah, I try and do as much of my own work to have prints and stuff, but again, this year has been all about the big stuff.
Yeah.
I've probably done 4 or 5 small finished pieces in the span of 12 months, which is nothing. I thought I would have all this time to create like a big body of work. I would drive, and then I'd get there and be like, okay, I want to draw this thing, and I'd start it and then go to bed, and then 6 weeks later I'd be like, oh, I got to keep working on that thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to be in one spot, and I can, instead of driving thousands of miles, I can put a bunch of hours into
time
art.
into
That's the trade-off. But yeah, and then I'd like to say a little thanks to people that have followed along and been supportive and amazing and awesome, and anybody that's brought me out to do a mural, thank you so much. And to all the people that have been involved with the van and the tour, like, I hope I don't forget anybody. If I can mention some of these people.
Sure, go for it, man.
Do it.
Viore Clothing, Guayaki, Mizu, 2920 Sleep, Dr. Bronner Soap, which I see you guys have in here as well.
Oh, I need some of that in my pits right now.
Hot Tea Media, Suga Yoga.
Yeah,
Shouts out to Brian. And Eco Surf, which is one of Marco Gonzalez's nonprofits. Shouts out to Marco. And who am I forgetting? Who's on my van? Oh, the James Brand Knife
Good cheat sheet over there.
Aloha Collection, Maria Coffee, and that about covers it. I mean, thank you all to being a part of this tour and for hooking me up with good stuff to use along the way.
Good deal.
Okay, cool. I have to ask the stupid question of the podcast.
Oh, I've got a dumb one. I haven't been trying. I've been trying to not ask.
Throw them in.
Are your parents Star Wars fans, or did it just happen?
That's not a stupid question at all.
Well, I'm sure you get it all the time and you're sick of it, but he's been talking about you for a while, and I'm like, I really want to know.
So my parents, according to them, had my name picked out before I was born. I was born in 78. Star Wars came out in 77. So they have my... It's close, yeah. But my parents had no influence from Star Wars. It just our last name is Walker. My middle name is Skye, so my first name is actually Sherlock.
Fabulous.
Sherlock's it's a mouthful, but so my full name is Sherlock Skye McLeod Walker, which is a lot. But
that's a fantastic name.
Thank you. It's all Scottish heritage related.
Oh, sure, yeah.
According to my mom. So then, as I got older, Skye just was a little easier. Because, you'd get no shit Sherlock and all kinds of stuff in school.
Oh, jeez.
So then I just started going by Skye, and it just simplified it a little bit. I got a lot of Luke Skywalker Star Wars stuff, but that's fine. I like Star Wars. But yeah, that's the heritage of that.
All right.
It actually had nothing to do with Star Wars. It just coincided.
Fair enough.
But I wish I had some royalties from Star Wars.
No, come on.
Yeah, come on, George Lucas and Disney. Set me up. I'll put it on my van.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll rename it the Millennium Falcon.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Do a Star Wars themed van.
Hey, if they want to pay me for it,
oh hell yeah,
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'd live in that van.
Heck yeah. What's your stupid question?
Oh, my stupid question.
There's no stupid question.
No, I just had to know. That was
you said that you had already always been a fine artist, and I've always, because I've been in like a big fan of hip hop for a long time. Whenever I think of a mural, I think of people moving from graffiti to permission, and I just wondered if you had ever had any what's your relationship with graffiti?
That is not a dumb question at all.
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
I wish I had history in graffiti, because I grew up in a family band, and we were talking about saving the environment and doing things like that. So I wasn't out running around painting illegally. And
Yeah.
not to say doing that illegally is right or wrong. I wish I had those chops.
Right.
I don't. But I respect all the guys that do, and, you know, set the stage for people today that not only do street art, but, you know, get paid for it because, you know, they did it before we did. But murals have been around for thousands of years.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
We
there's
were
the
talking about...
there's the dividing line, and one graffiti artist I follow said, you know, the difference between a graffiti artist and a muralist is any idiot can paint a mural. And I understand what he was saying. He was just trying to be like, you know, it takes a certain flair and panache to be a graffiti artist, and I get that. But not everybody can paint a mural. So
No.
Well, and
I
there are
can't
also
paint a mural.
there are also people doing quote unquote graffiti who don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're just trashing somebody's garage door.
Yeah.
totally.
You know?
And there's a big difference between graffiti and vandalism.
Yeah.
And so when I
Yeah.
meet people and they always think, well, you do graffiti, and I say, actually, I'm painting a mural, but graffiti is its own type of art, and vandalism is something very different. People get them confused, and that's not fair to graffiti artists who work really hard to make their style awesome and legit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's knuckleheads in every realm that are trying to paint murals or graffiti, and they're doing it improperly, or they're claiming something that they're not. But as far as me, I didn't grow up doing graffiti. I've never tagged illegally. I have had times where I'm like, I'm gonna go find a wall and I'm gonna tag this illegally, and then I'd be like, it's not me. And I don't have that background, but the guys that do, I mean, they've earned some stripes for it for sure. And there's some heavy hitters in the street art world that have ascended from doing it illegally to getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for their work. Shepard Fairey, for one.
Yeah.
You know, going from getting arrested from tagging to owning Obey and doing insane public works. So it's cool to see guys like that, you know, get theirs after, you know, coming up that way.
South
Sure.
Carolinian.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
That's right.
I grew up going down playing golf tournaments. Talk about doing something sheltered. I grew up playing golf tournaments and going down, and he's probably only 45 or something, right?
Something like that.
And he couldn't have been more than 19 when I was seeing the Obey Giant, like, just on police barricades, like, stenciled, and like he had done them, you know?
Well, see, and it's guys like that who have the foresight to start something, which he did, and Banksy's done, and a slew of other artists. But I mean, when you think of people in the street art world that have really made an impression, I mean, he's definitely one of them. The Obey Giant, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And I wish I could say I've come up with something that's that iconic. I haven't. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't. But when you do something like that and hit a stride and can ride it like he has, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How long are you guys going to do van life for?
We don't really know.
Yeah.
Until we don't like it anymore, I guess.
There you go.
Indefinitely.
We're just over 10 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been talking about getting another van.
Yeah, we would like to get a bigger
we
van,
might
but
get a bigger one. We're having a good time,
The
so who
thing-
knows?
the novelty hasn't worn off.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's still so many advantages that are, I wouldn't say necessarily long-term outweigh the constraints of living in a van, but there's so many advantages that are still more interesting than the disadvantages. You know, I'm still more interested in exploring the advantages than I am frustrated with suffering the disadvantages of living in the van. Things as simple as, like, the fact that, like, we're doing this trip right now. We're gonna drive around for 7 weeks.
And this is
We're
our
gonna go to
first-
Montreal. Like, we just left, and we don't have the means to do that trip unless we took our house with us.
Yeah.
And we were able to, you know, we're not eating out much at all, and we aren't paying for accommodations at all. It's a bunch of gas, but we're, like, splitting the cost, and so, like, we can afford to take this giant epic trip. So for something as large as that to something as small as being able to commute from Encinitas to Irvine for a meeting
Stop.
the night before and not have to deal with traffic. Something as simple as that is like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I woke up in my bedroom this morning, 3 miles from my meeting, went to the gym and took a shower, and everybody else is either late or too early, and they're frustrated because they've been in traffic, and my house is parked around the corner.
Yeah.
And it's a dream for me because I'm an artist too, and getting to go to jobs all over the place is like really convenient.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can take a job. I've been able to take jobs all over San Diego, and we can go stay where if I have a night rehearsal and then a morning rehearsal, we can go and stay where it is, and that's super convenient. And if something were to happen and I got a theater job in Chicago or New York or somewhere else, we might be able to do it out there. To take our house with us, which is super fun.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You get it.
Definitely been like, well, traffic's gonna be gnarly. I'm gonna get there earlier. Or if I've ever been trapped, well, I can pull over and park for 3 hours because I don't.
Just hang out.
Yeah.
Get some work done.
There's no stress because it's
Yeah.
like I'm in my home. My
Yeah.
home is where I'm at.
For sure.
Stop
it.
I definitely. What's your feeling on the term van life, which is obviously thrown around quite a bit?
I don't mind it. I mean, it's descriptive. I was in Culture Brewing in Encinitas, and because I'm a policy guy, and because I'm interested in having and even instigating the conversation of whether vehicular habitation is okay, and whether you're a weirdo because you live in a van. I'm interested in instigating that conversation. So I respect people who don't readily volunteer this information, but I readily volunteer when I meet somebody. I go, hey, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Where do you live? I live in a van, because I want to have that conversation with people. Mm-hmm. And one of my buddies, who I had announced that to his friend that I had just met or whatever, he goes, or this is a guy I didn't really know. He goes, you don't live in a van. You're a van dweller. And I'm like, I don't fucking care, dude. It doesn't matter.
Call me what you want.
Yeah.
I would love for it not to need explanation. Like if you're having a conversation with someone that lives in a house and you're like, I live in my van, and they're like, cool.
Yeah.
That's people do that.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's not.
Yeah.
I love having the conversation with people that have no idea, and I hear them judging me in what they're asking.
Oh, for sure.
There was a woman.
Are you okay? Do you need help?
Well, yeah, there was a woman I met
Give me a shower.
in New Jersey, and she was like, "What do you do?" And I told her, and she's like, "And you live in your van? What's that like?" But all her questions had this just down tone of like, "I'm asking this because I'm sort of interested, but I also don't approve of it at all in any way."
Yeah.
And that's fine, Everybody to each their own. We've all lived in a place I moved out of an amazing place in Cardiff with my roommate Kyle. Shouts out to Kyle, who was just here. We went surfing, hung out. He's on a 7-week road trip.
Right.
He's living in the back of his Tacoma, and he's like,
Nice.
he's reminded, he's like, travel is amazing. I've met so many amazing people, and I said, take that and multiply it by 13 months because the amount of people you meet along the way is such a gratifying experience. Like, you could stay in your bubble, which is fine, and so many people do. But when you break out of that bubble and you open yourself up to experiences and people, the best things happen, especially if you're open to it. If you go out with a negative vibe, you're going to pull the negative. But the positive and negative, the yin and the yang, really happens. But if you're really open to it and accepting of it and patient, I think that's the biggest key, is being patient. Bless you.
Thank you.
And not try and rush things. I've met people along the way where I'm like, I don't have time to have this conversation or whatever, but I just took a minute and was like, okay, what's up? And talking, and that turned into, I know this person that has a place to park, or someone that might need a mural. And by being patient and open to it, it yielded great experiences.
Yeah.
And back in San Diego, I know, because it's a fast-paced way of life, everyone's like impatient. Another thing too is, and I've said this in a couple other podcasts I did, is that you got to have that patience because you never know what people are going through that you meet, and everybody's going through something: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And you have to be patient for that fact, because you don't know that the person that's serving your coffee, who's being a total jerk, their girlfriend just passed away, or they, something's going on in their life you can't understand, and they're projecting it on you. You just got to be calm and patient, and you give them something nice in return.
Sure.
And by understanding that, I've learned things about people along the way that were going through some really heavy shit. I never would have guessed it. And I didn't ask about it. It just came up, and then I was like, whoa. I understand now why, their vibe was a certain way. So those are all things you got to take into consideration while you're traveling, and you got to be open to, so many things and not be closed off to it. Because, you're in a different realm living in a vehicle, and, being, subject to things moving around you as you move versus being static. So you got to bend and fold a little bit.
I think it's a really good way to expose yourself to other people, but also to expose other people to yourself. You know what I mean? Especially because we're in such a small van, we spend tons of time outside, in public, whether we're at the van or somewhere else, we're just out in the street, with other people. And yeah, I mean, it's what you're saying. It's like, I've spent a bunch of time like really angry about injustice and stuff in my life, in the various forms of advocacy that I've been involved with. But I think at the end of the day, especially in person-to-person interactions as opposed to organization-to-organization interactions, nothing bad is ever going to come from A, not letting somebody else bum you out, and B, being sweet and positive. Not polite, not obligatorily polite, but just being sweet and positive and like letting them do whatever the fuck they're doing. Yeah. Even if it's being an asshole to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and trust me, there's been times where I've wanted to dish out what was
coming at me.
Whether it was just snide comments or whatever, but it doesn't help. You can't fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
You just can't take anything personally.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people come up and say, I don't like what you're doing, and I'm like, okay, thank you. And whatever.
Yeah.
You felt the need to tell me that?
Yeah.
Good for you. You did it.
You did it.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Because it doesn't help to turn around and say, well, F you out if you don't like my work. Not everybody's going to like what I'm painting, and that's fine. That's art.
Yeah.
But, it's, you have to be ready for that and open to that and understand that's just how it goes. And everybody, including the three of us, are all going through some change, spiritual, mental, physical, and all at different times. Yeah. And even if it's a positive thing that change you're going through, it's still a change, and we're all in transition, and we're not just, some people treat other people as like machines because they're serving them food or coffee, and then they think it gives them the right to be like, just
you're
as
not a
bad.
human.
But anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's my 2 cents from
sense,
living in a van on the road and being accustomed to being around lots of people, which is very invigorating, and it's also very exhausting. You have to balance the time with a lot of people with plenty of time by yourself.
Yeah. Thanks for sitting down with us. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming up to Oregon and passing through and taking the time to have me be on with From the Van.
All right, guys, we did it. I thought that was a really fun conversation. Had a good time talking to Skye. Hope that you enjoyed it. Really appreciate it if you have stuck around this long. It's always interesting to meet up with people who are sort of facilitating their passions for which they need to travel by using the van to do it. And it's cool to see Skye, driving around and getting to his different gigs with the van. So check back in with us next Tuesday for another episode of From the Van, and feel free to go over to FromTheVan.com and watch a bunch of my stupid videos.